We continue counting down the best modern players in Badgers football history, position by position. Today we're doing receivers. Who makes the top 10? Who misses the cut? The answers might surprise you. All that and more on today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this one of your first listens every day, one of your first stops every day. Really do appreciate it. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, free and available on YouTube. And we're just continue. I always say it, but we're trying to build that Badger community, get more discourse, more discussion. Really appreciate everybody stopping by. And I thought we needed a fun show. Like we had the Tackett Curtis stuff. I had a show just recently about the most painful Wisconsin losses in football, basketball, recent history for me. So we're going to continue our countdown of the top players in modern Badger football history, starting with our doing positions. We've done quarterbacks, we've done running backs. Go check out those shows if you missed them. We're going to do receivers, right? And this is a strong list. This is a stronger list than people probably realize. There's been a lot of dudes at Wisconsin. Now, we don't churn them out like Ohio State does. We don't churn them out, like Alabama or Penn State, but we've got some dudes on this list, and there's some guys I have to cut off that are legitimate playmakers. We do on a top 10. When I say modern era, I'm going back to Barry Alvarez. So basically 91 and forward is where this list comes from. And let's start it off. Let's jump right in. Number 10, I got Donald Hayes, who played at Wisconsin from 94 to 97, New Jersey kid, finished with 1,500 career yards, 4 touchdowns, 15 yards per catch, big play guy. And he was a player who really came on his last 2 seasons, that 95 or that 96, 97 seasons. He had over 40 catches each of those years. Pretty big play target. Again, you finish your career with an average yard per catch of, 14.9. And he was an NFL guy. That's something you're going to see on this list. All of these dudes are NFL guys. And we talk about Wisconsin's inability to get receivers. And that's not completely untrue, but you're going to notice there's a lot of NFL talent that's left Madison from the receiver spot. So, Donald Hayes was a 4th-round pick. He's a unique player in that he's had probably a more successful NFL career than he did a college career. He had 144 NFL receptions, almost 2,000 yards, 9 touchdowns at the NFL level. All of that's beyond what he did at Wisconsin, but he was really good at Wisconsin. Again, average 15 yards per carry or per catch. So he's number 10. He's who we're going to start the list with. Number 9. A proud member of the all walk-on team, from Darlington, Wisconsin, Alex Erickson, 6 foot, more athletic than people ever gave him credit for. A really good return man as well. He's still in the NFL. He's another player who carved out an NFL career. At Wisconsin, he had 141 career catches, 1,800 yards. Incredibly reliable, consistent player. His senior year was really good. 77 receptions, 978 yards. So definitely that possession receiver, a guy who moved the chains a lot. He gets dinged a little bit because, he, like his senior year, he had 77 catches and 3 touchdowns. So he wasn't a big red zone guy. He wasn't a big, down the field threat, but a great possession receiver. Again, you catch 80 passes at Wisconsin darn near in a season. That's really, really good. And just an uber consistent. He, on a really good team, you probably want Alex Erickson to be your number 2. Paired with a big play receiver, but he was a great college receiver for Wisconsin, incredibly steady, went to the NFL, still in the NFL, became a really good return man for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was their kickoff return guy. And one year he led the NFL in kickoff return yardage. So it speaks to the athleticism that was there. It's almost surprising when you look at that he wasn't utilized a little bit more in a big play capability at Wisconsin, showing that special teams ability in the NFL against the greatest athletes in the world. But yeah, so Alex Erickson is number 9. Really good career, great senior season, really rock steady. Just gets dinged a little bit because there's a lack of red zone production there. But yeah, great player. Number 8, DeRasmus. Again, going kind of into the Wayback Machine. This is at the beginning of our window when I say modern Wisconsin football, that Barry Alvarez window. DeRasmus is really at the beginning of that. And he's one of so many players that Wisconsin has gone to New Jersey for. He's out of Stratford, New Jersey. He played 91, 92, 93. Another big play threat. 119 career receptions, 1,900 yards, and 15 touchdowns. So a big play guy, 16.6 yards per catch. You notice a lot of players from those early Wisconsin teams were big play guys on this list, really racking up off that play action game. Big opportunities down the field. He was another NFL player, 6th round pick. DeRasmus is my number 8 player. Going to number 7, and we're going to wrap up on this first segment at number 7. Nick Toon, Middleton, Wisconsin, obviously the son of the great Badger Al Toon. Nick Toon is my number 7 on this list. Career 171 receptions, almost 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns. So one of the more productive careers you're going to find at Wisconsin. A player who came in with a lot of hype, a 4-star recruiting ranking, obviously playing in the legacy, the shadow of his father. And it took him a little bit to get going. But once he got going, just became, similar to Alex Erickson, just a rock steady possession type receiver, but more of a red zone guy as well, because he had more size than Erickson. He had more size than a lot of guys. He was a big player, physical, really good hands. You always remember him, hand catching the ball on out routes along the sideline. Had some really big moments. His senior season, he had 10 receiving touchdowns. If you think about a Wisconsin offense, if you have a receiver with 10 receiving touchdowns, that's pretty unique. That's second all time at Wisconsin for an individual season. Finished 6th all time at Wisconsin for career receiving touchdowns. So he did over multiple seasons. But really, that senior year was special. 10 touchdowns overall, almost 2,500 yards as a career. Great player. Definitely a guy who he lived up to the legacy, right? And, that Al Toon, Nick Toon receiving legacy at Wisconsin now is pretty strong. It's pretty unquestioned. So that's my first group, right? I got Donald Hayes at 10, Alex Erickson at 9, DeRasmus at 8, and Nick Toon at 7. And, let me know in the comments below what you think of those players, what you think of that ranking. A couple players are obviously going to get left off this list, a couple really good players. But these are all NFL guys. This is the bottom of the list. And you have, Donald Hayes was a 4th-round pick. Alex Erickson's still in the NFL. DeRasmus was an NFL guy. Nick Toon was a 4th-round pick. A lot of talent here. Big physical receivers. Alex Erickson, super steady. Coming up next, I'm going to talk to you about one of the biggest play receivers really in a long time in Big Ten history even. I mean, that's probably a little too high, but maybe the biggest play receiver that doesn't get talked about for Wisconsin. That's going to be coming up next on the next segment. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar remains the number 1 source for a nutritional sidekick, a protein bar. I use it all the time. I ate one this morning, the cookie dough one this morning, which is ridiculous. They sent me some free samples. It's a 100% pure chocolate bar with like chunks of cookie dough on it that is loaded with protein, low in calories, tastes great. My kids rated it already. It's really good. And it's a reason we use it at Locked On. It is just one of the best ways to eat well, to gain control over your nutrition while trying to be a little healthier and not forcing things that taste like cardboard into your mouth. Trust me on this. Built Bar is incredible. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with these. You're not going to feel guilty, and you're going to want to keep doing them. I get them off Amazon all the time. I have the recurring buy. And, if we can give you a discount as well. So at Built Bar, go to built.com, promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15. Get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off built.com. Thank you again, everybody, for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the comments that we're getting. We're building this Badger community. It's all of us together. I love it. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep going. And when you're done here, go check out Locked On NFL. They're talking about the 50 most valuable players in the NFL, according to BetOnline. Basically, which players move the lines the most. So go check that out as well on Locked On, wherever you get podcasts, or on YouTube. All right, let's jump in. Let's just jump in. Let's keep going. Second segment, number 6. Again, we're ranking the top 10 Badgers receivers, modern era. We're going to go to number 6, Quintez Cephus. Wow, what a physical player. All right, Quintez Cephus. If there's been one player that's come through Madison that reminds you of like an old school throwback, single bar physical receiver, it's Quintez Cephus. Just unbelievably tough, great hands, incredible hands. You couldn't cover him one-on-one because he would box you out and he would just snatch the ball. I still remember, I think it was against Indiana. He caught a ball and he got hit by the safety and maybe the corner at the same time. And he just held the ball in his hands. He never even brought it for a touchdown. He never even brought it into his body because his hands were like vice grips. Really physical, great blocker. I have him a little higher on this list than maybe his stats would indicate, but it's because I think if he hadn't got hurt where he broke his leg, and if he hadn't missed that season where he was accused of some off-field stuff that ended up being thrown out of court. So I'm not holding that against him, but I do think it hurt his numbers. I think it destroyed his rhythm. He might have had another season in Madison, and really, really just a physical, athletic specimen, a great under-the-radar recruiting find. If you don't remember, Quintez Cephus was a basketball guy. He was committed to Furman, I believe, out of Georgia. And, Wisconsin went down. They found him. They saw this under-the-radar, physical, athletic, big, kind of freakish receiver. And they said, you can come play receiver at Wisconsin. So they flipped him from the Furman recruitment. And then later on, right down towards the end of his recruitment, some SEC schools tried to get in. I think Georgia tried to get in and reflip him, but Wisconsin had him. And boy, did that pay off, because he gave Wisconsin a number one receiver. He gave Alex Hornibrook a number one receiver, guy who averaged 16.1 yards per catch. So again, another big play, physical receiver, 13 career touchdowns, 39-inch vertical. So that was that player that you could really high point. You could isolate him on a corner, throw it up. And I remember Ohio State, Jeff Oduka, who was a first-round cornerback for Ohio State, was talking about Quintez, and he said, that's the best receiver I've ever faced in college. And you're talking Ohio State, they're playing Clemson, we all know Ohio State's schedule, the type of players they run into. Jeff Oduka said, Quintez is the best one I've run into, I've played against. And it was that physicality, that toughness that really set him apart. So I got Quintez Cephus at number 6. Just a great, great player at Wisconsin. I think his career got interrupted a little bit by injury, by the off-the-field thing that really wasn't his fault. Another NFL guy went to the Detroit Lions. So that's number 6. Number 5, Touchdown Tony. Tony Simmons. This guy was ridiculous when you look at his numbers. If you look at the stats, a player out of Chicago, Illinois, an athletic freak show. If people aren't familiar with Tony Simmons, also did track, just a freak show athletically. Ended up being a second-round pick. And so, again, another just high NFL pick from this group of receivers in the modern era of Wisconsin. And he played from 94 to 98, 99 career receptions, 1,900 yards. What really stands out about Simmons, and there's a reason it's Touchdown Tony Simmons, 20 yards per catch, 23 career touchdowns. I just think about that. 99 career receptions, 23 career touchdowns. That's ridiculous. 20 yards per catch. Are you kidding me? Get out of here with that. He is second, actually, all time at Wisconsin in receiving touchdowns with 23. He ran a 4.35. He had a 3.96 20-yard shuttle, which, for context, that is elite. The last time I looked, I actually looked this up. There's only been 4 Badgers that have run under 4 seconds in the 20-yard shuttle, and Tony Simmons is one of those guys. So big play receiver. Elite speed, elite quickness. And, he just thrived at Wisconsin, and again, ended up being a second-round pick in the NFL. So I got Tony Simmons at number 5. And yeah, we could use some of that. Jarred Abbrederis is number 4. I'm going to wrap up this segment with Jarred Abbrederis. So what a player, right? And listen, we talked about Alex Erickson. We've talked about walk-ons on this show countless times. This is another member of the all walk-on team. I should do a show on the all walk-on team. I think I'm going to do that. But Jarred Abbrederis, another proud member of the all walk-on team, two-time first team all Big Ten player, had over 200, had that great game against Ohio State against Reggie Roby, who was a first-round pick, where he burned him, had like 200-plus receiving yards, absolutely cut him up. And Roby's another guy who talked about how good. We talked about Jeff Oduka talking about Quintez Cephus. Roby's a guy who talked about how good Abradaris is. His career finished with 202 receiving or 202 catches, 3,100 yards, 23 touchdowns. And Abradaris was unique because he was a player that could do a little bit of everything. Like, he was a big play guy early in his career. They would run a lot of deep play action to him, a lot of deep posts, but he was also a guy who could carve players up with his route running, exceptional route runner, great toughness, really good hands, averaged 15 yards per catch. And then he had a great senior season, right? There's not many Wisconsin receivers, and this is probably an indictment on our passing game. It's probably an indictment on our offense to some degree, but there's not a lot of Wisconsin receivers that break that 1,000-yard mark in a season. Aberderis is one of them. That senior year, 78 receptions, 1,081 yards. That's rarefied air at Wisconsin to break that 1,000-yard barrier. So, Abby was just an incredible receiver, tied first all time at Wisconsin for receptions with 202. We're going to get later, into a player who he's tied with. But an exceptional player, multi-year contributor, another NFL guy, tough, great hands, good blocker. So Jarred Abbrederis is our number 4. Coming up next, we're going to break down the top 3. I'm guessing most people know who number 1 is, but who's number 2? Who's number 3? You got to stick around to find out. Today's show is brought to you by the following sponsors. All right, everybody, thank you so much for sticking with us, for listening to Locked On Badgers, for making it one of your first listens every day. If you like the show, please leave a listen, or please leave a like, subscribe, and I really appreciate it. It's one of the ways to support the show. This is a good spot to point out that Locked On Iowa has almost twice as many subscribers as Locked On Badgers. We got to change that. Together, as we build a community, let's catch up to Iowa. We are a better show than they are. I shouldn't say that. The Locked On Iowa guys are great, but we are a better program than they are. Wisconsin, Iowa, let's go. Let's catch up. I really do appreciate all the support. Let's get into the final 3. At number 3, I got Brandon Williams. Brandon Williams from St. Louis, Missouri. And what sets Brandon Williams apart from a lot of other players on this list, from a lot of other players at Wisconsin, is Brandon Williams was just a straight 4-year contributor. I mean, every single season he played, he was over 42 catches. And it's just not many receivers that have 4 productive years at Wisconsin at that level. I mean, there's not a lot of Wisconsin receivers that have 2 or 3 40-plus reception years. Brandon Williams got 4 of them. I mean, you think about that type of consistency, and you think about how great that would be to balance out the running game that Wisconsin always has, to have a receiver on the edge that's always giving you 40 to 60 catches. And then his senior year, we talked again about how hard it is and how rare it is for a Wisconsin receiver to break that 1,000-yard mark. Brandon Williams is another one of those guys that did. His senior year, 1,095 catches, also a really good special teams player. 3rd all-time in Wisconsin receiving yardage, tied for 1st all-time in receptions with Jarred Abbrederis at 202. Had some big moments in bowl games as well, specifically that Auburn bowl game in his senior season. Really, really good player, tough, quick. He was a 3rd-round pick in the NFL, so another NFL guy. And the NFL career didn't quite pan out, but at Wisconsin, his blend of quickness, hands, explosiveness was really hard for opposing defenses, and also just a really consistent player. So Brandon Williams, I have at number 3. Coming up at number 2, one of my favorite Wisconsin players ever. Just so much fun. Chris Chambers played from 97 to 2000, a kid out of Cleveland, Ohio, and not a big player. Like, Chris Chambers was like a 5'10", 5'11", but we talked about Tony Simmons being an athletic freak. Well, Chris Chambers is right there too, right? Chris Chambers ran a 4.4. I think he still has the highest recorded at a combine vertical for a Wisconsin Badgers player. It was 40+. I want to say it was like 44 inches, the vertical, which is, I mean, that's NBA elite. I mean, that is the elite of the elite. And there's a reason, if you go watch Chris Chambers highlights, it's just go route, post, jump ball. I mean, he is so explosive. And they used to just air it out for him. And for the most part, people couldn't jump. They couldn't stay with Chris Chambers. He was incredible. Finished his career with 127 catches, over 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. Another NFL player, just an athletic freak of nature. So I got Chris Chambers at number 2. There were some players. Listen, there's players, and this is where, if y'all disagree with my order, please let me know. Like I say it all the time. This is my list. It doesn't make it the right list. And I'm here for the Discord. I'm here for the discussion. I love it. That's what we're trying to do, build the community. I'm never going to pretend like I'm the smartest guy in the room, right? So let's get it together. If you guys disagree with me, leave a comment below. Let me know, and we'll hash it out. We'll chop it up. But where there'll be no disagreement is who's number 1 on this list. If there is a disagreement, that person has not watched enough Badgers football. Number 1 on the list is Lee Evans, Mr. Lee Evans. And I don't think there can be any debate here, right? Lee Evans is the standard bearer for Wisconsin receivers, from Ohio. Also much like Chris Chambers, from Ohio, incredible athlete and not overly big, but Evans was explosive, just beyond explosive. Program leader in career yards, touchdowns. His junior year is probably the pinnacle of Wisconsin receiving years. You'll probably never, unless something dramatically changes with the offense and how we run it, you're never going to see a Lee Evans year again. He had 75 receptions for 1,500 yards and 9 touchdowns. 1,500 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. I mean, just an iconic Wisconsin receiver, one of the best receivers in Big Ten history. That's not hyperbole to say that. He's probably the only Wisconsin receiver you can put into that type of sentence. But you're talking about a player. If you're not familiar with Lee Evans and some of the career numbers, we're talking about a player that had 5 touchdowns in a single game against Michigan State. That's Jerry Rice stuff, right? That's Charles Rogers at Michigan State stuff. That's Calvin Johnson stuff. It's how rare it is to get 5 touchdowns in a single college football game as a receiver. I don't know how many people have done it. Not many. I should look that up. 4 career 200-plus receiving games, 13 touchdowns as a senior. Again, we talked about that junior year, 1,500 receiving yards. In the career, 175 catches, 3,400 yards, 27 touchdowns. Get out of here. Close the book. Lee Evans is the standard bearer. And, again, a first-round pick in the NFL, played for the Buffalo Bills. Like everybody on this list, NFL exposure, NFL talent, NFL career. But there's nobody like Lee Evans at Wisconsin. Really, this list, if you were to break it down in tiers, it's a Lee Evans tier, and then it's probably a tier with probably a 3-person tier, I would say, with Aberderis, Brandon Williams, and Chambers. And then there's probably a tier of Simmons, Cephus, and Toon. Is how I break it down. But Evans is in his own tier, is my point. So that's my top 10. Let me know in the comments if you disagree, if you think I'm wrong, if I missed somebody. There's some really good receivers, guys like Jonathan Orr that aren't on this list. There's players on this list that aren't on this list that were really good at Wisconsin. Let me know if you think I should switch this order around. I was very tempted to move Tony Simmons higher, to be honest, because he was just so explosive. But again, here's my top 10. It goes Donald Hayes at 10, Alex Erickson at 9, DeRasmus at 8, Nick Toon at 7. Coming up at 6, Quintez Cephus at 5, Touchdown Tony Simmons. Jarred Abbrederis is number 4. Brandon Williams, number 3, Chris Chambers, number 2, and the great Lee Evans, number 1. Appreciate everyone listening. I thought we needed to get kind of a feel-good show today after some of the bad news with Tackett Curtis. And, again, if you like the show, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. If you are able to subscribe, to leave a comment, to leave a like, let's catch Iowa. They have twice the subscribers we do. We can do this together. Let's build this community. Until we talk next time, really good shows coming up, by the way. We have a State of the Union basketball. I have an interview with an Ohio State viewpoint. We have a crossover with the Washington Wizards viewpoints to talk Johnny Davis. So a lot of really fun shows coming up. Stay tuned. And until we talk again on Wisconsin.